Welcome to Ladies in Law, where real-world advice meets professional wisdom and empowerment in realms of law and business. Your hosts, Lisa Goucher, Dawn Smith, and Kellye Raymond, bring you innovative strategies, practical guidance, and inspirational stories. Join us as we inspire and support women to thrive in traditionally male-dominated fields. We're here to promote inclusivity and provide practical advice for success. Hi, Lisa here with Dawn and my good friend, Simona Farrise. Simona and I have known each other for almost 20 years. I met her years ago when she approached me to use my company for her brand new law firm, and we have been fast friends ever since. She is an innovator, an entrepreneur. She's a phenomenal trial attorney, and I am so excited to have you here today, Simona.
Well, thank you. You should talk to my children since you have so many nice things to say, right?
Our children do need to listen to some of our friends and what they say about us sometimes. That would probably be...
It's true, because they are like, oh, you know. So I'll just say, as a mother, as a working mother, lawyer, working mother, lawyer woman, you know, my children are accurate to say I worked a lot during their growing up. I mean, that's real. But at the same time, you know, sometimes it's just nice to have someone say, and you've actually accomplished something too, you know? And so thank you, Lisa.
You are welcome, and you have accomplished so much. And I actually want to start with this new chapter because you are just known for reinventing yourself. So would you please share with us what you've been doing the last 2 years?
Okay, well, the new iteration, which I never could have imagined if you had asked me 3 years ago if there was any chance in the world that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would say that just could never happen. But the lesson there is be open to what life has in mind for you, because, you know, and don't close doors either in your mind or otherwise. But right now I am the head of Consumer and Environmental Protection for Alameda County, California. Alameda County, our best known cities are Oakland and Berkeley, but we actually have 19 cities and nearly 2 million people. And most people have no idea that a district attorney's office has a group of lawyers who are focused on consumer protection and environmental protection. So I started this job in January of 2023 after having spent nearly 30 years in private practice. So it's been a whirlwind, to say the least.
Okay, so what's the difference between the team that you're running in your office now versus the trial team, law firm team? What's different?
The transition. Tell us about the transition between going from the private sector to the public sector.
Well, and there's two transitions. One is the private public, but the other transition was going from being a business owner and operator of a law firm that at its peak, my law firm had, 15 lawyers, and having my own joy of a payroll and health insurance and all of that, to now literally being a practicing lawyer who is someone else's employee, in this case the government, and not having to do all of those things and wear all of those hats. So, in the private sector, I represented people who were injured, one family at a time, or in some cases, maybe I represented a group of people who were injured by a bad product or something, and trying to make them whole and get justice for them. In the government space, we are able to basically do preventative law, where we can identify practices that companies are undertaking that are unlawful before they actually hurt a mass amount of people. I mean, sometimes we prosecute, obviously, because there has been an injury, but it's just a really important thing for the government to say you're false advertising, you're skirting the law on subscriptions, you're doing a lot of things that could harm a lot of people, and getting in there and saying to these companies with our legal tools, stop it, and getting compliance with the law before they hurt a bunch of people. So both were rewarding, and both are in the consumer space, usually prosecuting a corporation from the private sector and now from the government space. But it is vastly different in a lot of ways.
I'm so inspired by that. I think, I take a lot of pride in being a trial lawyer and representing people that have been injured, just because I feel like the government a lot of times is so just behind the ball when it comes to trying to protect people up front. So how do you take on these responsibilities to where you're really in the front, taking, care of these people on the front end before something bad happens? That's a huge responsibility.
Well, it's a huge responsibility, and it's an underutilized tool for government lawyers. I do think that part of what's unique about me is that I came to being a government lawyer after having been in private practice for 30 years and knowing how to prosecute in that respect. I have not found people in this government space who have traveled in that direction. Usually what you find is people go into the government space and then they leave that and they go to private practice. There's not, I won't say too many people, I don't know any other people who have been in private practice and having done it as long as I did and then end up in a government space, which is why I said earlier, there was just no way of imagining that I would be here. But I do believe in service, and I had this opportunity, and I'm able to take my years of experience and then superimpose this on this government space. And so, a concrete example, you and I talked about, you do nursing home cases where people have been, suffered terrible injuries from neglect or what have you in a nursing home setting. From the government space, we are doing prosecution against a large nursing home operator that operates multiple homes throughout California, and they are skirting the rules of staffing, of reporting, of all of the regulations and the things that the law requires nursing homes to do to keep people safe. And we don't have to sit back and wait until someone dies or falls and breaks a hip or whatever it happens to be. Because as a government actor, we get to come in and say, hey, you are not following the law, and we need you to follow the law, especially like in this setting, or people are really going to get hurt, and really vulnerable people, people who can't take care of themselves, which is why they're there in the first place. But most prosecutors, traditional criminal prosecutors who've never spent any time in private practice like we were talking about, these consumer protection laws are so foreign. So they have the authority, they just don't know how to deploy it. So for whatever reason, the universe has put me in this place of using what I knew and knew how to do well, and now doing it from this government space. So it's really amazing.
How have you handled that transition, leading a team of people, like a trial team, trying to get justice for injured folks, compared to running a team of government employees and trying to, take action to prevent future harm? How is that similar and how is that different?
Well, I got a little lucky break, to be perfectly honest with you. The transition of administrations that I am part of from the last one is not what anyone would call necessarily a peaceful transfer of power, okay? It was a hard-fought election. It was very close. And so a lot of the people who had been in consumer protection, environmental protection for decades in this office, they decided that that was a good time for them to retire or move on in their careers. So I actually had a real opportunity to populate my staff with people, quite frankly, like me, who had been in the private sector, who had worked for 10 years, who knew the ins and outs of how to put together a massive civil case, criminal case, and they wanted to come to the government space and be in service and put their skills to use. So I just got really lucky that not only did I get this job, but I got a force of lawyers who were thinking very similar like me. And to be fair, I'll just share with you, I got a good amount of refugees from big law. And for people who don't know what that means, it's like, people who went to law school, graduated at the top of their class, got a judicial clerkship, worked in firms that represented big corporations for years, but for whatever reason weren't rainmakers or what have you. And so they were never going to be equity partners. And they just were feeling like in their careers and with all this experience, there's something more that I want to do and I want to help people. And this government space of consumer and environmental protection really offered that. So we're just unique in that regard.
I love that. I love that. Could you tell us, are there, do you have a lot of diversity in your office? Equal men, women, different races, religions? I mean, how do you balance all of that? And do you strive to make sure you have diversity in your department?
Well, we do have some diversity, not enough, because the diversity in the law in any organization is going to be reflective of the diversity in legal opportunities and in law education. And, that's a whole nother can of worms. So I'm a person who is, technically mixed race, but I identify and am identified as a Black woman. And that's been the case for my life. And so, yes, I would love to be able to support and train and mentor, other women lawyers of color. But I am also limited in what comes to me. And the reality of what comes to me in terms of those opportunities, like I said, from big law, the opportunities, et cetera, it's still imbalanced with mostly white males. But having said that, I'm also a person who embraces and looks for what I would call allyship, right? So in our lives, we're all, have the ability to be an ally to someone else, right? If you're a man, you have the ability to support, what it means to further, the opportunities and equality for women. If you're a straight person, you have the opportunity to support being an ally for people who may have, sexual differences or whatever it happens to be. So, that's really sort of the beginning of the story, but not the end of the story. So for me, I am looking for good people who want to do good things and who want to be in service and make a difference in people's lives. And yes, I would love to be able to pick and say, I want this many women and that many men, but the reality of the legal profession and legal education means I have to take the good people when they come and scoop them up.
Well, and Simona, you've always been so relatable. And I just know that from all of my years of experience when working with you on the court reporting side and the trial side. And I have just the cutest memory that I have to share because I just think it really just, says so much about you. So you were doing a trial, you against a big corporation, and you needed summer help. And you brought your daughter in. You reminded me that she was 17, and I know she's grown now, but I will never forget the meltdown that she had running your computer, doing a presentation, rolling her eyes, and she having the daughter moment, you having the mom moment in front of the jury. And, that's what makes you just real, relatable. And, I just think that's something that's through and through. It's part of your characteristic.
Well, that was a crazy thing, and you reminded me of that. I hadn't thought of that, but I'm going to call my daughter after this and remind her of that. Yes, she's 32 now, but so we're sitting there in Los Angeles Superior Court, the big courthouse, in a major trial against some major corporation, and she's super smart at this time, and the job is run the laptop. When I ask for an exhibit, push, that file so it comes up. And I guess when I asked for it, as I did in my lawyer mode, may I please have exhibit 200, she took it as her teenager, like, I just can't believe you're talking to me mode, and went like, and therefore, it was really almost like a split screen, right, for the judge and the jury. Like, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to need you to just pause for a moment because we got a little situation over here. I didn't say that. It was all nonverbal, but it was like, really? Are you kidding me?
Did any of the jurors talk to you about that afterwards? Did that come up? That had to have been amazing.
Well, the great thing about jurors are they are people, real people, and they like, I do think, real people. One of my superpowers, I'm going to call it, and I've learned this over the years, is I really like people. I like all kinds of people. And that really has helped me with jury work. So when I talk to jurors after about this incident or something else, you know, a lot of times what I hear is, wow, you know, you really explain things to us very simply and very clearly, and we really appreciated that, you know, the preparation part. But we also appreciated that you talked to us. You didn't talk down to us. You didn't talk above us. You know, you didn't make us feel like in this big complicated case we couldn't figure it out. So I try, and with jurors especially, you know, the job of a trial lawyer is to empower 12 people or however many people you have to do something extraordinary with other people that they haven't met until they came to jury duty, and leave that process feeling like, you know, they have, you know, doled out justice. They've done something important. So when they go back to their lives, they can say to, you know, their husbands or bosses or whatever, yeah, I was on jury duty. And number one, I hope they say we learned a lot. And number two, we did some very important work. So that's my superpower. And it's hard because you can't, like, people ask me, you know, how do you do that? And it's like, well, it's sort of asking you, like, well, how do you breathe? You don't really know how you do it. That's just who you are. So
You just make it happen.
claim it, but I claim it. Yeah, right.
So what is your 101 on voir dire for a young attorney?
See, okay, so voir dire, which is jury selection, we try and use real people words, I'm just going to say, is, you know, you got to talk to people, and you have to talk to people that are out of your comfort zone. So one thing I encourage young lawyers who are trying to become trial lawyers to do to get comfortable with jury selection is stand in the longest line that you can, longest, slowest line at the grocery store, and just turn around, and whoever randomly is behind you, just start talking to them. If you say nothing else, then, hey, can you believe that, you know, they don't have more staffing? Or, you know, hey, did you hear about, you know, that great thing or that terrible thing that happened in our community? And just close your mouth and stop and see what it will take to engage a total stranger about a topic they don't want to talk about when they are trying to just get in and out of the grocery store, and see if you can, you know, develop a conversation, because that's a lot of what jury selection is like. And I find that in my regular life, I do that all the time. I mean, I'm giving the grocery store example, but like I just went to a great jazz concert weekend, and I met a bunch of really great people who I hadn't known before. And, you know, now we've exchanged numbers, and hopefully we're going to be fast friends. But, you know, it's because I usually say, hey, did you hear such and such? Weren't they great? And then we start talking, and, you know, and that's how you build a tribe, I think.
So where did that come from in your background, in your history? You know, that, like you said, it's a superpower. It's something that you've developed from something. Where did it come from, do you think?
Well, it comes from my mom. My mom was extraordinary. She's passed away now, but her example was extraordinary. She came to America as an immigrant in the 1960s in Chicago. She had a government job, which meant she worked downtown. Chicago is the kind of place where people were, you know, stayed in their neighborhoods. But for the people who worked downtown, you got to meet people from other neighborhoods, other parts of the city, other cultures, whatever. And she just was open to it. And one of the things I remember, open to people growing up, and I, you know, didn't realize until later that people don't have this kind of upbringing. My mom would get invited to all the great celebrations, the quinceañeras, the, you know, Orthodox Jewish celebrations, you know, Greek folks, Puerto Rican birthdays, anniversaries. And, you know, she would get invited and she would just go. And wherever she landed, she just would sort of, you know, dive in fully and embrace the people that were there and whatever it was. So I just thought everybody did that. It took me a while to get out into the world and to realize how narrow some people's lives are. And so it comes naturally, but it comes naturally by example.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Do you bring that? Do you find that you're able to bring that to your teams, the teams that you lead? Do you foster that in any way, that kind of open communication? Is that something that you're able to do, and is it something that's helpful?
I do bring it. We had a chance, beforehand to talk a little bit about leadership, and I think that leaders of any kind of organization, Girl Scout troop to law firm, or whatever, you have to be open and leave space for people. And you have to really figure out your personnel. When I had my own law firm, I used to say I run it like a ball team, because I love sports and I love basketball. And by that I mean, if you have a ball team, you have 5 different players who need to play together. Everyone needs to bring their strengths, and everyone needs to be supported as they're developing other skills, but they're not all the same. And so as a leader of an organization, first of all, especially lawyers, everyone is going to get out of law school and pass the bar, so they have a certain minimum competency or they wouldn't be in the profession. But after that, what are their real strengths? Do they have personal strengths? Are they the kind of person who can bring people together? Are they, the best researcher? So how do you find out who your team is and what their strengths are, and make them do really well together? So as a leader, a lot of it is holding space. You had asked me earlier the difference between private practice and coming into the government space. As a leader in the government space, because I'm not also running a business, I do have more time for those kind of things. And it's just super important. When you're in the private sector, you got the payroll and people calling out sick and working with vendors and deadlines. So it's just a lot. But in here, I've really been able to focus on the holding space, holding people accountable, with love and encouragement, but holding them accountable, and also figuring out what's important to them. Because as government actors, we can really do, our authority is broad, and so people are going to do better when it's something that they're passionate about, So, for example, I have a lot of lawyers now that are on my team who have children. So we are really focusing on things that really impact vulnerable communities, children, elderly people, poor people, etc. We could focus on anything, but I know that they are going to be super, super passionate about the things that they know is making a difference, not only in their lives, but in the lives of their neighbors and in our sort of local community. And that's when I see, them doing their best work, rolling up their sleeves and just giving it everything they have.
Well, and Simona, the thing that I've also noticed about you throughout our relationship and our friendship is your ability as a role model, and just a huge proponent of women across the board at conferences, getting us together, always making proposals. When conferences were just men only or men and women, you would just pull everybody out to get the women together and start the whole brainstorming. So do you feel like today compared to years ago that we've advanced to the point that at least we are moving in the right direction?
We are definitely moving in the right direction. Based on the numbers, if nothing else, the statistic I heard is that we are, for the first time, a tiny bit more in terms of law school students. And that's great. We want women entering the law, but it depends on where they enter and how they're mentored, right? So and then who's telling them how to build a career, not just enter the law. I talk a lot about how being a kid whose dad was a truck driver and my mom, collected tickets on the CTA in Chicago, I didn't have a lot of lawyer role models. And so when I was a kid and saying, I want to be a lawyer, that was like the end of the road. when really that's the beginning of the road, okay? And so we definitely need to encourage people to say, where are you in your career as soon as you get out of law school? Where do you want to be 5 years down the road? Where do you want to be 10 years down the road? You know, have some vision of where you want to go. Now, the great thing about being a lawyer, and I try and, you know, say this all the time, is it's a great professional ticket. You can be one thing as a lawyer for 5 years, and then you can take a total, you know, extreme right turn and be another kind of lawyer, because the law touches everything. And so that's just an amazing thing about it. What I hate to see, and we see this so much with women and not with men, is women leaving the law. And I am trying to figure out and think about ways to support women so that they are staying in the law for their entire professional career as lawyers. You know, I did what people would call hardcore trial work, litigation, you know, try multiple cases against big corporations every year. You know, I have many jury verdicts, et cetera, et cetera. But at this stage in my life, I'm a better coach, to be fair, right? I know how to do a lot of things. And so there is benefits for other people who are building their careers for me to try and support them. But I'm really not at a stage where I want to be the one pulling 3 all-nighters every other week, okay? Been there, done that, got the postcard. So we are making strides as women. Thank you for saying that my big vocal, unapologetic voice has made a difference. But, you know, I mean, I think that's another thing. Women suffer in silence, right? And you just, in this field, which is kind of bizarre, you know, you want to say, hey, where are the women? Hey, where are the people who look like me? Hey, I can't be the only one, but that's not always well taken either, right? Because even though we're there now in numbers, are we really there now in terms of authority and power? And so that's a whole nother conversation about how we, you know, open our own firms, how we support our own firms, how we work with other women who are doing the same, and how we build our own tribes of support and professional networking. And so that's much better, but we still do have a long way to go.
So what can we do as trial lawyers practicing, you know, for 20 years or more? What can we do to encourage women to stay in our field through the time they're having their babies, you know, through some of the really difficult times where, you know, you have to leave your daughter, you know, home with hopefully a family member like a husband or, you know, a grandmother. I was very fortunate. My grandmother lived with us and helped us raise our kids. But, you know, how do you encourage women that are great lawyers, that you can see so much potential in them? How do you encourage them to stay in?
Well, you know, it's on this side of the V, which means you are representing injured people. What a lot of people don't realize about a law firm in that regard is you don't have corporate clients, meaning you also don't have clients who have insurance. You don't bill by the hour. When most people think of lawyers, they think of these lawyers who bill by the hour. So that means you know, we have a saying in the law on this side, you eat what you kill.
You do.
Meaning if you don't win cases, then you don't make payroll and people don't eat. So there is a lot of pressure. But I do think what I've seen since when I started my law firm after being a partner in another law firm, I was a partner in another law firm for more than 10 years before I went out and started my own law firm, which I ran for then 15 years, starting in 2007. But in 2007, the models of if you're not wealthy, you're just a good lawyer, how do you start and launch a law firm? How do you find people who will support you? And, you know, you do have to have a little hustle in you. Lisa and I met in part because I came to her saying, hey, I'm starting my own law firm. Here's my track record. You have a court reporting service. This is clearly a necessary thing. I have, you know, big cases. And in that time frame, my cases were like I had one plaintiff and I might sue 30 people. So is there any kind of accommodation, if you will, that you might be able to work out with me. And she was like, well, like, you know, I'm running a business too, but if we get hired as the court reporter, then there'll be, you know, 30 companies or law firms that, you know, right away order transcripts. And, you know, you can then, you know, maybe when you settle a case, which might be 3 months down the road, you know, then you can, you know, pay for those services then. So that's like it seems like a little thing, but it's probably the biggest thing at the beginning that helped me survive. So, and help the firm thrive. Just a lot of things like that. I mean, I think you have to say to women, you have to say it, because it's not always as obvious as people think it is. You have to say, there is always a way. Figure out a way. What women are really good at, whether it's raising, you know, kids or taking care of parents, is figuring out a way. So you have to bring that same can do, can make it happen spirit to the practice of law. I will say what's fundamentally different, and one of the reasons I started my firm is because it was really at the beginning of technology moving the law away from a brick and mortar in the office, in the library with a book practice to what we see women doing now, which is, you know, I can remember sitting on the soccer field on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. With, you know, a transcript, you know, reading and saying, hi, honey, yeah, go, 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 you know. But in a modern age, you might have your phone or smartphone or a tablet or whatever it happens to be. You literally can take a case with you, you know, wherever you need to go. So it's not easy. I don't want, you know, we can't, you know, not tell the truth, but it's doable. And I do think that when women who are in the phases of their lives of starting families, et cetera, are saying, oh my God, how did you do this? You know, the honest answer is, you know, it's not easy, but women do it and it's worthwhile. And you need to be somewhere where you're going to be supportive. I mean, that's the other thing. Context is everything. I do counsel my lawyers even today, focus on your real life first, because you're not going to be anybody's good lawyer if your whole real life is falling apart. So whatever you need to do to stabilize your real life, that's the first priority. And then try and, you know, be the best lawyer you can, because people are depending on you.
Yeah. And I mean, you think being vulnerable too, right? Actually saying how it feels, how it felt to go through this process where you actually are sitting on the soccer field, reading a transcript and, you know, having to miss out on things and talking about how that felt. But, you know, also having that amazing feeling of standing next to somebody in court and getting that big old verdict and knowing that you did right by this family. Just having those true and real conversations. I think that we're getting better at that, but we definitely need to just keep on being truthful and honest about all aspects of how it feels.
Well, those are brand new conversations in the law. I mean, maybe they've been happening now for a decade. You know, I can remember as a new lawyer, I was in trial and I came back to the office because you had to come back to the office for lunch. And I got an emergency call from the preschool that my daughter was attending saying it was, you know, 90 or 100 degrees outside. We opened the door so the kids could go to recess. She ran out, she ran up a metal slide and she burned the bottom of her foot, and you know, I could hear her screaming in terror in the background, and you have to come right now. And I literally was going back to court with the senior partner because he was going to do closing arguments, but I had done all the preparation. And you know, I had to walk into his office knowing that my career at that law firm was going to be over and say, you know, here's your box, here's your files, here's your outline, it's all prepared.
Good luck.
But I got to go because my daughter needs me. And I remember his face just looking at me like, you got to be kidding. And it was like, no, I'm not kidding. Bye. I didn't, it's credit to my partners at the time, I didn't get fired. I didn't get asked to leave. But it was so unusual because in a male-dominated profession, that would be something that the male lawyers would not be expected to drop everything and do. But as women entering the profession and having those conversations and saying to other women, whatever the struggle of the day is, it will pass, and trying to support them because, good lawyers are hard to find. And what I have found, and I'll just say it out loud, is that women are the best lawyers. They work hard. If they are, quite frankly, super dependable. For whatever reason, we always think we can't do enough. We're not overconfident, and many times, unfortunately, we're too underconfident. It's like we over deliver and under promise, and sometimes with men, they overpromise and underdeliver. I mean, those are general stereotypes, and of course, there's exceptions, period. But as a whole, and I've been a lawyer more than 30 years. I was a legal secretary and a paralegal for 10 years before that, so it was my fourth, going on my fifth decade in the law. Women are, superheroes. They just don't realize it. So sometimes just having someone say, even a superhero needs a break, even a superhero's human. I think if you're a leader of an organization, you have to take it upon yourself to create community, to create bonding, space, whatever your team needs. It's like being the leader of a family. You got to take the family on, vacation, downtime, camping, whatever it is that's going to keep the fabric of the group together. Yeah, air traffic controlling at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Planes got to leave on time, okay? So
that's right.
Well, I just feel like we've barely scratched the surface, especially once we start talking about women and legal and the lawyers coming up and trying to keep them in the field. So I know, like in the future, Simona, definitely going to circle back around and get you on here again.
Thank you. I will tell you that my focus right now is women of color in the legal profession. And that is because women as a group, we are moving forward. Women of color, because we really haven't been in those roles of power and authority and are in such small numbers in the legal education space. We have a long way to go. So I just feel like me in particular, that's where, I need to put my big voice right now and to shine a light on where are those opportunities, who's creating space, and helping with that development. So if you want to know what I'm doing, that's what I'm doing right now, okay?
Well, we're behind you.
Yeah,
we're behind you 100%.
And definitely be circling the wagons to see where you're at, because you do have a big voice. You are an amazing role model. I honestly can't think of anyone better to be tasked with that endeavor. So thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you, dear friend. Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. We're going to all meet together in San Diego and do this in person.
Yeah. Can't wait. I can't wait. Lovely to see you. Thank you again.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Ladies in Law. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to shake things up in law and business. Don't forget to hit subscribe and let us know what you think. Spread the word and share this podcast with your network. Follow us on socials for all the behind-the-scenes fun and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep rocking it, keep breaking the mold, and as always, keep aspiring to inspire.